Hello, everybody. My name's Brian Engelman, and I'm the host of The Unhappy Hour. It is a sports show that I've done for more than 6 years at TheNewAmericanMedia. And I am calling to host a beer summit between President Donald Trump, LeBron James, Steph Curry, Colin Kaepernick, and a whole bunch of other people. And I'll get into that more in just a second. But here's what's going on and why I decided to come up with this beer summit idea. In fact, let's be specific. It's former President Barack Obama who taught me that we can have a beer summit when maybe things are getting a little out of hand, we're saying some stuff and going a little too far, or maybe we're just missing each other and crossing lines of communication. Maybe we stuck our foot in our mouth. Maybe we want to redo. It could be a variety of things. But here's what's going on. On Friday night, President Donald Trump went in Huntsville, Alabama, at a rally. He said, "Wouldn't you love to see these NFL owners, when somebody disrespects our flag, to say, 'Get that son of a bitch off the field right now. Out. He's fired. He's fired.'" So that set off a chain reaction. And now you got Robert Kraft talking about it. Sending a statement about deeply disappointed by the tone of the comments made by the president on Friday. "I'm so proud to be associated with so many players who make such tremendous contributions and positively impacting our communities. Their efforts, both on and off the field, help bring people together, make our community stronger. There's no greater unity in this country than sports, and unfortunately nothing more divisive than politics. I think our political leaders could learn a lot from the lessons of teamwork and the importance of working together toward a common goal. Our players are intelligent, thoughtful, and care deeply about our community, and I support their right to peacefully affect social change and raise awareness in a manner that they feel is most impactful." So that's Robert Kraft, the Patriots chairman and CEO. But people are mostly talking about what LeBron James clapped back with. LeBron tweets, "You bum." At Steph Curry 30 already said he ain't going, so therefore ain't no invite. "Going to the White House was a great honor until you showed up." Now that came because President Trump said, "Going to the White House is considered a great honor for a championship team. Stephen Curry is hesitating, therefore invitation is withdrawn." So while it's unclear whether Trump actually extended an invitation, Curry said to ESPN on Friday he didn't want to attend the ceremony if it happened. So you got President Trump uninviting a guy who said he's already not going, unless he didn't invite him, or maybe he did, and the president getting frustrated and annoyed that people are disrespecting the flag and the anthem during football games. And you saw a baseball player on the Oakland Athletics do it yesterday too. This is now it's all the rage. You must kneel during the national anthem. I don't know how people are missing that this could be disrespectful to first responders and military and their families and anyone who's served people, even if you and your immediate family didn't, maybe your parents did, maybe your grandparents did, and you kind of revere that sacrifice from the first responders and military that have given so much so that these players could make millions of dollars playing a children's game. So this has gotten a little out of hand, and that's why I'm calling for the beer summit. I learned from former President Barack Obama that if you want a redo, that if you want to kind of calm things down, when you said the Cambridge police acted stupidly, when you as a president go out and blast the first responders, you blast our police force as being, as acting stupidly without having any information of the case. Where the professor was climbing in his window, a neighbor called it in as a possible break-in, and they had to figure out what was going on because there was a guy climbing through a window and the neighbor reported a potential break-in. The president chimed in and said that they're acting stupidly. So I think we're all allowed a couple redos. I mean, you find me a person that's never said something they'd like to take back or say again, or all right, let's just hit reset, timeout, do the Zach Morris timeout thing that they did on Saved by the Bell, and just try it again. Come on. Anybody that talks a lot, you're going to say a lot of things that you would like to take back. That's only fair. People that don't talk a lot do that. It's called being a human. The name of my other show is called Agree to Disagree. It's a current events and political show where I think we need to have more conversations, more difficult conversations, and we need to be able to say, all right, on that particular point, let's agree to disagree. You're on one camp, I'm on the other camp. I don't want to argue about it anymore. Pause. Let's move on to the next thing, because I think what unites us as humans is much larger, greater than the things that we disagree with. And here's where I think things have gotten a little bit twisted. I think sometimes the media will try to cram a narrative down your throat. So if you don't like Colin Kaepernick kneeling during the national anthem, you must be a racist. I got a lot of people in the Unhappy Hour sports show group. It's a private group. It's on Facebook. If you're an Indians, Cavs, Browns, or Buckeye fan, come on in. You got to answer some questions. We'll let you into the group. But there's a lot of people in this group that don't agree with that. To make the assertion that people who don't like Colin Kaepernick kneeling during the anthem are therefore supporting police brutality. That narrative, that line of thought, that manipulation, that propaganda has got to stop. And really, a lot of it's coming from ESPN. And that's why places like The New American Media are growing and places like ESPN are hemorrhaging viewers. It's the reason why places like the Unhappy Hour are growing and why the NFL is having empty stadiums. The 49er game had half-empty seats for kickoff. Half the seats were empty. They're talking about maybe moving the Chargers back to San Diego. Or maybe people want to enjoy sports as a break from politics. And remember, in the words of Mike Polk in the epic video called The Factory of Sadness, where he's yelling at the Cleveland Browns Stadium for delivering a consistently horrible product, Mike Polk says this.
And listen, I know that there are way more important things in life than football, but you are supposed to be our pleasant distraction from those things.
Do you get that? I know that there are way more important things than football, but you are supposed to be our pleasant distraction from those things. People want to go to sporting events to have fun, to have a few beverages, hang out with their friends, barbecue beforehand, do a little bit of tailgating, a little bit of cheering, maybe even some celebrating. Look, right back here, Cleveland Cavaliers championship, greatest sports moment of my life. Right up there with the Ohio State championships. Never had one here, never had one with my Cleveland Indians, although this year might be the year. You're supposed to be our pleasant distraction from those things. That is what people want sports for. But ESPN has turned this into a political arm of the Democratic Party, and people aren't a big fan of that. We want to have fun at sporting events, but half the country voted for the president. Half the country voted for Hillary Clinton. So you're going to divide your fan base by kneeling during an anthem that a lot of people say is disrespectful to the first responders and the military. It's a fake news narrative that says either you support kneeling during the national anthem as respectful or you're a racist. Either you support kneeling during the national anthem and bringing politics into our sports, or you're a white supremacist. Jemele Hill. There's a lot of people that want to clarify some of this stuff. Press pause, take a step back, and say, look, let me take a step back, press pause, and say, look, all right? I started The New American Media because I didn't like the propaganda I was getting from MSNBC, from Fox, from all of the cable networks, okay? I didn't love it. So I started The New American Media to kind of give more attention to different angles that I didn't feel were being covered by the dinosaur media. One of the biggest cases that I followed, one of the very first things that extremely upset me was the murder of Kelly Thomas. And I'm going to say it's a murder, even though the two California police officers from Fullerton were acquitted of murder charges. I'm still going to call it murder. If you haven't seen the video of Kelly Thomas begging for his life, calling out for his father, if you haven't seen the police officer, who was it, Ramos and Campion, they put on latex gloves. The one officer put on latex gloves. and says, "You see these fists? They're getting ready to F you up." And they beat him to death on camera with audio, minute after minute after minute. And the movement starts to slow down and the pool of blood starts to expand, calling out for his father. They kill him on camera. I've been against police abuse for a very long time. I was at a party, and there was a noise complaint, and a whole bunch of police officers came in. And while people were leaving, the police were yelling stuff back at the people that were leaving. And I was already gone, and I went up, I walked around, and I looked up, and I said, "Why are you escalating this situation?" To the police. "Why are you escalating this? Your job is to de-escalate. Why are you escalating?" And I got a little Asian cop in my face, breathing on me. Stepped up to me this close. And I knew I was seconds away from getting the Kelly Thomas treatment. There was a lady cop who came up and got in between. Thank God she did. Because this cop was out of control. This cop was going to get off that day by cracking a skull. That's not what we pay the police for. They work for us. And I understand this. I understand that this country has a rich history, a rich, troubled past of racial inequities, Jim Crow laws, segregation, slavery. I get that. But nobody alive today owned a slave. Nobody alive today was a slave. Some of us were alive during the 60s and saw Martin Luther King get shot and killed, and Robert Kennedy and JFK. So there's a lot of people that currently have a strong mistrust of government, and I think that's fair. I think that's healthy. I think any government strong enough to give you everything you want is strong enough to take away everything you have. And I'm with you on so many of these issues. But we need to take a step back and find out why we're seeing constant protests about Mike Brown and Ferguson, but I'm not seeing them for Chicago. So when we're constantly wearing pig socks and calling out the police like Kaepernick is and kneeling for the national anthem, it just makes me question, is the narrative that I'm supposed to believe that the police are the predators in our community, or that there are actual predators in the community that police are trying to take care of? Look, there's a lot that we could get into and break this apart case by case and piece by piece. If you're up in arms about kneeling for the national anthem but you don't know about Kelly Thomas, I'm going to ask you why. If you support all these protests but you're not doing this in Chicago's streets every weekend, I'm going to ask why. But most importantly, I'm going to ask President Donald Trump, Colin Kaepernick, LeBron James, Steph Curry, Jemele Hill, Curt Schilling, Isaiah Crowell, Ben Swann, Ford Fisher, and others. Ben Swann and Ford Fisher are both journalists who were in Ferguson, who were in Baltimore. They've seen this firsthand, and they've come up with some other theories on this as well. Browns running back Isaiah Crowell tweeted out the ISIS-style picture of a cop getting sliced in the neck and blood squirting out just a couple days before the five Dallas police officers were shot and killed, executed by a Black Lives Matter sympathizer who said he wanted to kill police, especially white police. My point is that this narrative is causing a lot of racial hate against police officers, against white people, against the military, against the first responders. And as a white male, I can't understand why it's this one-sided hate that's cool, but a conversation is not cool, and it needs to be shut down. We can come from different points of view, but all agree. Anytime that the police are involved in a shooting, it should be recorded 24/7. All cops should have the cameras on to protect themselves against false accusations like Darren Wilson. The whole hands up, don't shoot, never happened. It never happened. But do you know that it never happened? Because you were told incessantly that it did. We need police cameras to protect the civilians in case there is abuse, like Kelly Thomas. And we need to protect the cops from false accusations. That's one of the only good things that came out of Ferguson. But I think most rational people are going to agree that's a minimum requirement demand from we the people for the police force. I think we can agree on that. I think we can agree that laws should be equal for men, women, and people of every color. I don't know who's arguing this aside from a couple hundred idiots in Charlottesville. But unfortunately, there are some politicians, they're a one-trick pony. That's all they know, is to get people fighting with each other. So while we're distracted, they can loot us. They can raid our pockets and take our money. And we can lose more of our civil liberties. So, once again, I'm calling for a beer summit between President Trump, Steph Curry, LeBron James, Colin Kaepernick, Isaiah Crowell, Curt Schilling, Jemele Hill, Ben Swann, Ford Fisher, and others. Because we need a little bit more conversation and a little less yelling. A little more conversation and a little less disrespecting. A little more conversation and a little less finger pointing and accusing. I think we all want a decent life for our friends, our family, our loved ones, our communities. And I think we all know that there are some cops that go too far and do things that are not acceptable and they should be punished. And that's a far cry from saying that there should be no police and there should be no borders and there should be no military. So I'm calling for this beer summit. We can do this in the White House. We can do this at Quicken Loans Arena or LeBron James Mansion. We could do this out here in Los Angeles. We could do this at the Golden Gate Bridge. We could do this at the Arches in St. Louis. We can do this at Arlington National Cemetery. I don't care where we have the summit. But I want to host this summit because we need to be able to agree to disagree on some of these finer points and focus more on the stuff that we do agree with. It is very possible that people are not happy with kneeling and disrespecting the national anthem, the country, first responders, and military, while still supporting equality and justice if police are out of line. It's a big difference. It's a big difference. Maybe it's a difference in style, in tactics, but we know that there are more important things than sports, and you are supposed to be our pleasant distraction from those things. I love when sports and politics connect, except when it just keeps going on and it gets really redundant and annoying, and I just want to root for my team, who's hopefully going to turn it around because we've been terrible for 19 years. So that's my call. A beer summit. When Barack Obama put his foot in his mouth and said the Cambridge police acted stupidly without having any facts or information, he called a beer summit to try to smooth things out, and I'm doing the same. Join me. Share this if you think that people need to talk more instead of talk down at people. A little more talking, a little less yelling. A little more talking, a little less tweeting. A two-sided conversation might be helpful here instead of a one-sided. Social media has changed the way that we communicate, but it doesn't mean that we need to change who we are. So, let's put this together. Let's see if we can't find a healthy way to impact our communities. I think we all want good communities. Find me people that don't want a good community, and I'll tell you somebody that I'm not inviting to this summit. And look, this is a growing list. These are just a few people off the top of my head waking up to see that this story has gone out of control. But I'm doing it. Because someone needs to invite these people to break bread together. There's got to be a way we can figure this out. Or at least we got to try. Maybe there's not a good way to figure this out. Maybe we're just doomed to this type of discourse for the rest of our lives. Maybe it's just a slow circling of the drain before America's swept away. What's the phrase? America will never be destroyed from without. It can only be destroyed from within. Now, there's a lot of groups that want to see our country destroyed right now. It sure seemed like for a long time they have been pushing for a race war. Let's not give it to them. We're better than this. We're capable of being better than this. Hell, I say that to my Cleveland Browns every Sunday. You're better than this! You're capable of being better than this! In between a lot of expletives and a couple of beers. So anyway, from one sports fan, hopefully to another, from one political junkie to another, from one American to another, let's have a beer summit. I'm calling it. You pick the place. Let's talk this out. I don't think Twitter is going to be the best place to continue this. Definitely not ESPN, definitely not Fox or MSNBC. Let's do this in person. Let's see what we can come up with. All right? Thank you for your time. Go Browns.